Hi everyone, welcome to NCKHUB. Today in this video we are going to cover Spring Boot profile and at the end of this video we'll show one sample Spring Boot application with different profiles, like how to create those profiles and how can we load it. So first we'll see like what is Spring profile. Profiles are like group of configuration properties like belong to different environments like development, testing, and production. Like we'll be requiring different configurations for different environments. So for that purpose, we need to maintain different properties. So like yeah, these profiles like help us in separating our application based on the specific environment. Like what is the usage of these profiles? Profiles like can control the application based on the configuration properties and beans. We can configure like which properties should be loaded and which beans should be loaded based on the environment we are working on. We already know Spring Boot application default it will have application dot properties file. So that one is the default profile. Like whatever application requires uh, with all the default values, so that we can configure in application dot properties. Like any other specific properties like need to be loaded based on the profile development or testing or production, then we can configure those properties in separate files. So which we need we can define the default values like which are common across all the profiles, like we can configure those in application dot properties. Yeah, how to create a Spring profile. We can create a separate file for each environment. So suppose if I want a configuration for development, I can create one file like application hyphen dev dot properties. So that file will be specific only for the dev environment. So yeah, we can also activate a specific profile by changing a single entry in the default profile. So in application dot properties, we have a property where we can define which property which configuration file needs to be loaded. So yeah, sample example is we can maintain different configurations related to database. So for development 1 dB, testing 1 dB, and production 1 dB. So like that we can maintain three different files like application hyphen dev properties, application hyphen test dot properties, and application dot hyphen prod dot properties. Like here is with one simple example, we can maintain three databases for each environment, like H2 database in dev, and MySQL DB in test, and Oracle DB in production. Yeah, so this is the sample file. So this is application hyphen dev properties. I can configure those properties like app.info. So this is specific for dev environment, and what are all the username and driver class name and related to H2 database. So second one is the application hyphen test dot properties. So here you can see I configure like MySQL database, and I configured username, password, and the driver and dialect. So similarly, I can configure for the production environment as well. So URL, username, password. So like this, we can maintain three different property file, one for dev, one for test, and one for production. Yeah, so how can we load a specific file, like which application dot properties I should load? So in application dot properties, that is default profile, so we have a property like spring dot profile dot active. So by using that property, we can specify which configuration file needs to be active. So spring.profiles.active equal to dev. So if I specify this, then while starting of Spring Boot application, like it will load the application hyphen dev dot properties file. So this is one way we can load it. We can also set the JVM system parameter, like which profile needs to be activated. So that we can pass it as a parameter VM argument. So hyphen D spring.profiles.active equal to do. So in this way also we can activate the required profile. Yeah, so another way is like we can also set the context parameter in web.xml. So in web.xml, so we have a tag like context param. So within that, we can write one param name spring.profiles.active, and we can provide the value param value dev. So in this way also we can activate the required profile. So another way is like by implementing this web application initializer interface. So whatever we have this class, we can define my spring. So this is the my class name which implements the web application initialize. So here I can override the on startup method. So in this way, like servlet context dot set init parameter. So whatever we are done in web.xml, so similar way, instead of web.xml configuration, so we can do it from class. So on startup, so we are setting the initialize parameter for servlet context like spring.profiles active. So that is dev. So instead of dev, we can put test or prod. Yeah, so we can also load the active profile from the pom.xml. So when we create a Spring Boot application, so we have this pom.xml. If we select maven, so in this we have a profiles tag. So under profiles tag, so we can specify profile and id dev and activation. So we can provide this like active by default. So from this only dev profile will be activated by default. So properties, you can see spring.profiles active dev, and similarly we can give the other profiles as well. So test, and similarly we can provide the properties. So here this active by default. So with this property, like dev property dev profile will be loaded. Yeah, so instead of maintaining different files, so we can also maintain all the profiles in the same application dot properties with the separator like hash, and we can see hyphen hyphen hyphen. So with this, like we can differentiate all the properties application dot properties. So first one is like our dev, and after separator we can see the test profile, and similarly prod. So we can see this property spring.config.activate on profile test. So by this with this property, like we can pass it from beans class, so that we can activate that profile. So we'll see in the example. Yeah, so similarly, like how does the spring boot spring container lead multi document file? Sorry. Yeah, so basically, when this has like multiple properties, like it is going to read from top to bottom, and whatever the last occurrence, so default like it is going to load that value. Yeah, so default that property it is going to consider. So Yeah, we may get config data exception, like if we try to use spring.config.activate on profile with along this property spring.profiles.active. So both the properties we cannot use, so any either one of these we can use. If we try to use both, like we'll be getting config data exception. Yeah, so we can also activate the certain profile with the help of @profile annotation. So this profile annotation, like it can take the name of like one or multiple profiles. So here for on the bean, bean @profile annotations, we can pass the value like which profile needs to be active. So here in example we can see @profile. So we are passing value as dev, and this is my component. So my bean config. So I'm going to load this dev. So this bean will be loaded only for the dev environment, dev configuration. So we can also prefix this value with not operator. So you can see now we have given not dev. So this bean component, so this component class is going to load for other than dev, like test or prod. So this bean class will be loaded. So yeah, another case like an we can activate multiple profiles as well. So inside the profile annotations, within braces, like we can provide both values, prod and the dev. So this bean is going to load for both prod and the dev profiles. And similarly, if we are trying to load from the XML configuration, yeah, we can do it that as well. So under the bean stack, so we can mention the profile equal to dev, and that particular bean will be triggered. Yeah, so we can also set the different profile using application.aml file. So like application.properties we have seen so far. So similarly, we can use application.aml. So here also we can create different files, different profiles by specifying. So here we can create the separate files for each profile. So here this is the default profile application.ml, and within this we can see which profile active. So I'm setting that property, and this is the default profile. And yeah, you can see app.name spring.profiles.active, and this is application.name, and this is app.name. So whatever we have provided in application as spring.profiles.active, so this will be in this format, and application.name, so this format. And yeah, we can configure the same for dev, test, and prod. So you can see spring profiles. Yeah, you can see dev data source. So just now we have seen example of database configuration. So same thing we can provide like this: spring dot data source dot username. So under data source, like we have these different property: username, password, URL, driver class name. Similarly, we can see for the test environment as well. So spring profiles test data source spring.data source dot username, password, URL, driver class name. So similarly for the prod. So like this, we can configure the same in using application.ml. So here, instead of these in different files, so we can configure in the same file as well. Application.ml. So this is my ML file. So here I mentioned spring profiles active dev. So by using the separator, so you can see hyphen hyphen hyphen, and we can give all the profiles: spring profiles, data source, test, and prod. So like this we can set it. Yeah, so we can also group the profiles. Okay, So yeah, we can activate profiles programmatically by using the main class, so we can spring application, so we can use this set additional profiles test. So like this we can also set add the additional profiles, and similarly we can group the similar profiles like together. So there are different profiles for development environment, like I have a DB and the email properties, yeah, I can club it for the production. Okay, spring dot profiles dot group dot production, so I can use like dev DB dev email. So whatever dev related DB property and dev related email, so that I can club it. So that's how, so this dev DB, it is going to pick from dev file and email property as well. Yeah, so now we need to check like how to check which profile is active. So we can use the environment object. So yeah, environment object, it is like kind of bean. We can use this AutoWare annotation to get the active profile. So here you can see like I sample example one controller class. So we have AutoWide environment class, and then yeah, we can see that get active profiles. So by using this environment object we can get all the active profiles, and we can see which profile is active. So like this we can check. Yeah, so we can also do it by using the value annotation. This value we can get it from application.properties spring.profiles.active, and we can try to check which profile is active. Yeah, now we'll see one example, how we configure those things. Yeah, so this is my sample Spring Boot application. Yeah, so yes, I have created this project Spring Boot profiles. So I have added dependencies like Spring Starter Web and Dev Tools. So yeah, so I'm using this Spring Boot Dev Tools so to reflect my changes. Yeah, so I have three classes: basic configuration and welcome resource, and main Spring Boot main class. So here I'm using this application context. So to run the Spring Boot application, and to get the what are all the beans get loaded during the Spring application startup. So here I'm using this at the rate profile annotation. So to make sure this particular bean is loaded only for the dev profile, and similarly test bean should be loaded only for the test profile, and similarly for prod profile only prod bean. So for that reason, like I have created these three beans. And basic configuration, so this is the values like I want to display on accessing the uh, get mapping of dynamic configuration, and similarly welcome. So I have two mapping requests, one is welcome and dynamic configuration. So in this welcome mapping request, like I need to display the message, and similarly what are all the message number and the key. So these things I want to display on accessing this. So here we can see this is my controller, and yeah, here I'm using this at the rate value annotation. So here I'm loading the property welcome dot message. Okay, so in this application, like I am having the default profile as well as three profiles: dev, prod, and the test. So in default application dot properties, so I am I'm giving the Spring profiles active. So initially we'll start with dev. So my application app dot name, so Spring Boot profiles, and this is the welcome dot message. So welcome message from property file. So welcome to the application name. So this message it is going to display welcome message from property file, welcome to Spring Boot profiles, and then these are the basic values. So this is another configuration value message and number. So in default profile, so I am configuring these things. So this is my basic configuration, and here you can see the annotations at the rate component and at the rate configuration properties, so which are starting with the basic. Okay, so what are basic? So after that, whatever the values, like those things I am trying to access. Sorry. Yeah, basic value message and the number. So getter setter methods as well. And yeah, so in application dev dot properties, so I have only two things. Okay, welcome dot message. So yeah, whatever is there in the default profile, welcome dot message, same thing, but I just added another like in depth. So similarly, basic dot message. So other values are same, basic dot value true and basic dot number 100. So for this basic dot message, so I'm just changing to base dynamic message in depth. So similarly for test profile, so I'm using this welcome message and same this app dot name you can see. So this will be loaded from default profile. So this thing we are not changing. If we want, we can add here also so that it will pick from the that particular profile in the test. Yeah, and here also basic message, so I'm giving dynamic message in test. Okay, similarly prod, so welcome message from prod and dynamic message in prod. So in default profile, so we have given some logging level property like debug. So in prod, change to info. Okay. So like this, whatever the properties required, like we can change it. So now we'll try to start the Spring Boot application. Yeah, so here it got started, and here we can see, yeah, following one profile is active dev. So we can also see. So here I'm printing like whatever the beans that are getting loaded. So here we can see dev bean is loaded, and yeah. So now we'll see in the like which message we'll get. So welcome. So yeah, my dev profile is loaded, and similarly this dynamic configuration, so dynamic message in dev. So other two values, these two are loaded from default profile, but this particular message from dev. Okay, so yeah, similarly now if I change to this thing test, so test will be loaded, and similarly I can change this application test. I can give app.name spring profiles test. Okay. Yeah, so now my Spring Boot application is restarted. So here we can see test bean is loaded. Okay, now if I try to change it, yeah, so here you can see Spring Boot profiles test in test, and similarly dynamic configuration, dynamic message in test. So similarly now I'm trying to change to prod. So now my prod profile will be loaded. Okay, so Spring Boot application got restarted. So now if I try to see, yeah, you can see dynamic message in prod. If you load, welcome to Spring Boot profiles in prod. So like this, we can maintain different profiles like dev, test, and prod, and whatever the configuration properties that are required to be loaded in specific environment, so we can configure those things. And whatever default that is required across all environments, like we can configure in default profile. Yeah, so similarly we can do it from application.aml, so instead of application.properties in a similar way. Yeah, so this is the simple example for maintaining different profiles. Yeah, thank you so much.